Welcome everybody to the 2018 National Healthy Homes Month webinar series. National Healthy Homes Month offers an opportunity to learn about housing and its impact on health and provide resources to encourage local activities as well as empower families to protect themselves from hazards in their home. This June's outreach activities aim to greatly boost awareness and understanding of what federal and local resources are available to make a difference in the lives of all residents, regardless of where they live. For more information about National Healthy Homes Month, including resources for your program, you can visit www.hud.gov/healthy homes. Today's webinar is Teaching the Next Generation Healthy Homes Principles, presented by Sarah Kirby from North Carolina State University Extension. We are pleased that you have joined us for this event. This webinar series is sponsored by the HUD Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes, USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the National Healthy Homes Partnership. This webinar will last approximately 45 to 60 minutes with 15 minutes at the end for questions. At the end of the webinar, you will be given information on links to additional resources for your program. We will be recording this webinar and posting it for your viewing later if you prefer. Finally, we ask that you keep your microphone muted during the presentation. You may unmute your microphone for questions at the end, or if you want to ask questions during the presentation, you can use the chat window or the questions window, and then I will read those questions to Sarah during her presentation as I see fit. We will leave time again at the end for other questions that you might have. So it is my pleasure to welcome my friend and colleague, Sarah Kirby, Dr. Sarah Kirby from North Carolina State University, Kimberly Allen and Kathleen Kirby from the University of North Carolina State. And this is a very wonderful program, by the way. They have been working on a middle school curriculum for healthy homes sponsored by us in HUD and USDA. And without further delay, Sarah, it is all yours.
Thank you, Michael. I've got my colleagues, Kimberly and Catherine here in the office with me, so we will be going back and forth during this presentation, so you won't just hear my voice. But thank you all for joining us. We're excited about sharing this curriculum with you and hope that it will be something that you'll be interested in using in the near future. The first thing I'd like to do is to go ahead and to see who we have in our audience. And my slides aren't advancing all of a sudden. There, whoops. There we go. Let's see. Well, Michael?
Yeah, I'm gonna launch it. Oh wait, it's
okay.
Can you go backwards?
I'm trying to no, I tried to go backwards, but it didn't happen. So interesting. Well, we're just going, okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. So the first thing we wanted to know is who are we talking to? So if you would take just 1 minute and let us know who you are. Are you a HUD employee, a HUD grantee, someone from Cooperative Extension, from a middle school educator, who you might be, because we want to make sure we know what kind of audience we're addressing.
And Sarah, as soon as everybody or most of everybody's voted, I'll close it and it'll pop up so you can see the results.
Perfect, thank you. Are we finished? All right. All right, the vast majority is other. Well, that's interesting. So if you would tell me who you are, that would be even better. What is it you do? If you put that in the chat box, that would be fantastic. I don't know if we can see the chat. We have no one chatting in the chat box, so we'll just move forward.
Actually, right. Sarah, can you hear me okay? Okay, so it looks like there's a bunch of people using the questions. It looks like, I'll read them real quick to you.
Okay.
there's a realtor in sustainable building design, a tribal air quality technician, public health advocate, program manager for a grant, housing counselor, weatherization, asthma educator, tribal tobacco prevention, certified asthma educator, public health nonprofit that performs home health and energy work, community health worker,
Okay.
Head Start. So it's all over the
We've got
board
a,
here.
a wide variety of folks then. Very good, very good. And I'm assuming you can see my screen again now. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, great. We have a whole bunch of folks then that are part of this presentation. So that gives us something to think about as we're talking. So let's move into what this curriculum is. So let's start with this question.
Okay, I don't think I heard middle school student on the list of all the people participating today, which I think is interesting since this is for middle school students, but I'm just joking. We're wanting to ask you guys to kind of think about this. Why do you think we have chosen middle school as a target population for our Healthy Homes curriculum? And you can type your response in the chat box if you have some suggestions or ideas about why middle school. Or just think about it in your head, because we also have a slide that kind of talks about why we decided to do that. And we're not seeing anything in the text chat, so let's go ahead and go on then. Well, the reason we chose middle school is because developmentally.
Hold on a second. So they're actually using the questions box, just so you know. Let me just read you a couple of these. Next wave of leaders, you have their attention, perfect age for the topic. Independent thinkers can be influential with their families and friends, educating youth for a better future. This is my favorite one because they're the filthiest and they're learning their habits.
Oh my goodness.
If you had a middle school child, especially boy, that's definitely the case. Okay, so good answers on that. Go ahead.
Those are great answers. Thanks so much for sharing those, Michael. We don't see those on our end. So yeah, you guys really touched on all the things that we talked about when we decided that we wanted to do a Healthy Homes project. We kind of see middle school as developmentally in between the realms of childhood, which has a very strong influence of the parents, and adulthood, where we grow into, sort of making these decisions about our healthy homes ourselves. So this is an opportunity for students to, go back into their childhood homes with their families and learn some of these concepts, but it's not so early that then they can't already begin thinking about their own future homes. So it really is, just like you all talked about developmentally, that time where, they can start to think about their home environments now and into the future. And I actually kind of agree with they're kind of stinky and messy, so maybe this would also be helpful at helping them be healthy in their own environment. So that was a good one.
Not only is this the perfect age developmentally for students to be learning about healthy homes principles, but as you can see from this quote from the National Science Teachers Association, science education in general is really moving toward teaching science that's more applicable to students so they can use it in their daily lives, they can use it to solve practical problems. So that's really how we chose to write this curriculum, to let it be for students to really see how they can use it at their homes, teaching their families. We also chose middle school because, as you can see from this table, all but 3 states, it looks like, do standardized testing in the middle grades. So all of these lesson plans and all of this curriculum that you're about to see is going to be things that teachers can use to help teach the curriculum that will be shown to students and assessed for students on the standardized testing in middle school. Each of the lesson plans that we have written for the Healthy Homes middle school curriculum have 8th grade Common Core, or really middle school Common Core science literacy standards attached to them. So Common Core is something that's used nationwide. We have literacy standards for social studies, math, and science. So each one of the lesson plans that you're about to see is already connected with those Common Core nationwide literacy standards.
Okay, so this curriculum really is going to focus on sort of the things that youth can do to assess their own living environment for potential home hazards. And so it's going to build upon some of the science theory and phenomenon that they would learn in science class, but again, also make it practical and give them some ownership of being able to work and make changes in their environment. So let's talk a little bit about what this curriculum looks like and what it includes. So currently there are 5 modules. There will be 2 more that will be coming soon. The first is an introduction, which is just sort of a general overview of what Healthy Homes is. There's a module on water quality. There's a module on asthma. There's one on radon and one on lead. And soon there will be one on carbon monoxide and home safety. Those are almost complete. And as we sort of look into each module, I'll give you a brief overview of each of them, and then we'll talk more specifically about some of the components that are included in these modules. But the Healthy Homes introduction really has 4 different lesson plans that look at the various principles of healthy homes and also look at some of those home hazards that you might find in a home. It includes some scenarios so that children get an opportunity to start thinking through some problem-solving activities. They create a children's book, and they do a take-home Healthy Homes assessment. With the lead module, there are 2 lessons associated with that, and really we talk about where lead is found, things like drinking water and on paint, and we talk about some of those potential health effects associated with lead poisoning. They do a variety of activities, including something called a web quest and a KWL chart, which we'll explore a little bit more in the future. In water quality, we talk about the importance of what water, the importance that water plays in everyday life, and we talk about those things related to pollution in water and how we filter out pollutants in water, where our water comes from. They actually do a water filtration activity that we'll show you in a minute, and they do a lab associated with pH and turbidity and bioindicators associated with water quality. Radon is one that was kind of interesting with our students. They knew very little really in comparison to some of the other topics, but radon is one that has 5 different lesson plans, and we talk about what radon is, how you mitigate for it, how it gets into your house, and what some of the health concerns associated with it. And then they actually do a radon mitigation project of their own. And then finally, the last one that we have fully developed is asthma, and it has 4 different lesson plans that focus on what asthma is, what some of the triggers are, environmental triggers and symptoms, and what relationship it has to healthy homes. And in this particular one, we pull in some videos and resources from other sites that can help students understand what asthma is and how to control for it. So as we dive a little bit deeper into the modules, each one has a lesson plan. As I mentioned, some have 2, some have 4, some have 5 different lesson plans. But each one will have their own lesson plan. It's designed to be turnkey, so the teacher really doesn't have to do anything more than what's already developed. They can if they want to, but they don't have to. We know that it's difficult being a teacher, and if you have to find your own resources, it makes it harder to use a particular curriculum. So we have it all sort of written out for them. So each lesson plan will include the Common Core Science Literacy Standard. So you can see here, this one is Introduction to Water Quality, and it relates to integrating quantitative or technical information into expressing things visually in a flow chart or a diagram. Student learning outcomes are spelled out specifically, so you know what you can expect students to understand and be able to share after going through this particular lesson. There's evidence of student learning, and then it also includes the various materials that each teacher will need as they do this particular lesson. Also in the lesson plan, there is a spelled out time frame for it. So how long it'll take to do each activity, what the teacher's actions are, and what the student's actions are. So hopefully it will make it much easier for an educator just to be able to pick up and feel comfortable with the curriculum without having to develop anything extra. Although they can, again, if they want to. Each module does have a PowerPoint presentation. That's an introductory lesson for students. So those are ready to go. And they also include things like student guided notes. We know that guided note taking helps to increase student engagement during lectures, and it helps with those folks that are diverse learners. And it reinforces learning, and it can be used also as a study guide, which is always helpful. So a student has all of the information that they need when they are about to be assessed on their knowledge. And then included in the modules, we've added what we call additional teaching resources. So current events, articles about things that are happening today that actually are associated with some of the healthy home topics. For example, we have a article about Detroit schools and high lead and copper in wells. That's something that's been in the news. We have something related to Amish children and the fact that they have lower rates of asthma than do some other populations. And then we also have some other activities from other resources that help students just get a better feel for what the topic is and help them understand the various issues associated with the particular topic. So,
okay, guys, it's time for your next little survey here. So think back to when you were in middle school. We're wondering, how did you feel about tests or quizzes? So, Michael, I think this is another poll. I don't know if are we doing, yes, okay. So how did you feel about them? You loved them? You hated them? It was just a fact of life. In middle school, how did you feel about tests and quizzes? You loved them, hated them, or just a fact of life?
So I'll again give them a few more minutes here. Got about 3/4 of everybody's voted. I will tell you that right now, about 2/3 of people are saying just a fact of life. About 30% hated it, and about 5% loved it. So
those are the nerds.
Okay.
No.
okay, so there's let me share it here. There you go.
Okay, look at that. 5% of you love taking tests and quizzes. 30% of us, I'm in this category, hated them. But most of us recognize it's just a fact of life. Taking quizzes and tests are a fact of life. Okay, we have another poll that asks a similar question about work style. How do you like to, do you prefer to work alone or in a group? So for this next poll, there you go. Do you prefer to work alone or in a group? So this is an A or a B.
About half of people have voted, so people are doing this one pretty quick.
Yeah, their fingers are ready. They're already ready. Good job, participants. Okay, do you prefer to work alone or in a group? Last chance to vote.
There it is.
Oh, so about 2/3 of you want to work alone, but then there's 1/3 of us who'd rather be with our buddies and maybe do some group work. So very similar to what we see in your poll results, we found that students are also, they vary in terms of how they learn best. So we wanted to incorporate a multiple assessment opportunity so that students can we're not just going to assess them on the pre-post. We're going to also help them to tell their stories about learning, identify successful learning experiences. When Katie starts talking about the implementation process and the outcomes that she got from her students, I think you're going to be so enlightened and excited to learn about some of the experiences. It also allows students to demonstrate a greater range of knowledge, and it supports those students who maybe don't test well or have some anxiety around testing. And so it's immediate as well as summative feedback for us. So that's why we decided to do a multiple assessment approach instead of just having sort of tests and quizzes.
Okay, so let's look a little bit more at what some of those assessments are that we have in our various modules. So this happens to be one of the things that we have in all of our modules, where we do a pre and a post assessment, so that we can get an idea of what students knew about a particular topic at the very beginning before instruction begins, and then we go back and assess what they knew at the end. And so we have a pre and post assessment with each of the 5 modules that have been created, and that really does give us an idea of what student knowledge is around the healthy home topics, because we don't really know in terms of middle school and what they're aware of. The other assessment that we have, and this is particular to the introductory one, is we ask our students to take home a home assessment where they will work with an adult, whether it be a parent or a guardian or an older sibling who might have some knowledge. But they'll take home this assessment and they'll assess their own home for things like indoor air quality and mold and moisture and carbon monoxide and some various home safety things. And then they talk with that adult about the conversation they had regarding home assessments, and did they have any questions on the assessment that they talked through that perhaps the adult couldn't answer, or were there any answers on the assessment that surprised the student? And once they've completed it, are there any categories that they think their home isn't very healthy in? And what changes might they make as a result of that? And the idea is really to get the students to start talking with adults about the home environment and where there may be some potential hazards and how those might go about being solved. And to make it real as well to the students. So make it real and practical and relevant. We also have a variety of student activities that we use for assessments, and we'll go into those a little bit more in depth. This kind of shows the variety in terms of visually what student activities might look like and what some of those assessments are.
So one of the activities that we have students complete are concept maps. So we have students working in teams of usually 2 to 4 students. And what they do is the teacher will give them different topics to include in the concept map. And then if you look at the pictures, the 2 images on the right, you can see that then students are drawing lines and making connections between each of those different topics around their concept map. So the examples that are shown here, we have the 8 different healthy home hazards, or hazards to healthy homes, and an example of a concept or a connection that students might have made between 2 of those topics could be carbon monoxide and radon. They may have connected those 2 topics and said that they are both colorless, odorless, and tasteless gases. Or they may have drawn lines between lead and water quality and said that if you have lead pipes, that could lower the water quality. So it's really just an opportunity for students to connect what they've learned in all of the different modules. That way it helps stick in their brain and it helps to be more memorable for them. Another activity that we have for students in our water quality unit, we have students work in what we call engineering teams to design and then build and test water filters. So as a class, we all make some water dirty. We'll add dirt, sand, grass, things like that to the water. And then students are put into teams where they have to create and design a water filter on paper. They have to show why they chose the different materials that they did. And then just to make it a little bit more relevant to everyday life, we assigned pretend dollar amounts to each of the materials, and we gave students a pretend budget of $30. So they only had this $30 to spend materials on. Then they built the filter, we tested them, and had a discussion about how well they worked and how really well they would work in real life.
Another activity assessment that we do is the Healthy Homes children's book. So in the introductory module, we have students usually work in a team of 2, perhaps maybe 3, to create a children's book that highlights potential home hazards and what some of those remedies to those hazards might be. And this really helps to demonstrate the comprehension in terms of what Healthy Homes is and some of the concepts. And it also helps students be able to interpret and articulate those principles to someone, in particular to a younger audience. So it makes it a little more real and gives them an opportunity really to be a teacher and be creative in the way that they teach these healthy homes concepts to younger children.
Another example of an activity that we have students participate in during our Radon module, they actually create mitigation systems themselves. So each team of students gets a shoebox, and we say that the shoebox is like the student's house. So you can see in some of these at the bottom of the box, we have some cracks that we cut into the bottom. And then we have wizard sticks, which release like a smoky water vapor, and we hold it underneath the box. And then students are able to see that gas traveling through their house, through their shoebox. And they work in teams to design a mitigation system to help get that radon gas out of their shoebox. So students, again, just like with the water filtration unit, they have a pretend budget they have to stick to. They have to draw out their design and get it approved first, and then they can actually build it. One of the things that was very interesting about this project and this unit is students, even for the groups where their mitigation system worked really well, after we tested them, we as an entire class would have a conversation about how functional would this mitigation system be in real life. So like this picture in the top middle, you can see that the group placed several straws all throughout their shoebox. If that was a real house and that was their real mitigation system, it wouldn't be very functional because you would just have a whole bunch of pipes going through your entire house. So it's something, again, it goes all the way back to the very beginning when we were talking about how science education and science curriculum is really moving towards principles that will be more applicable for students, where they start to think like engineers and scientists. So we really have tried to incorporate many different activities and many different assessments of student learning into our modules.
Okay, and then common to what you often find in other classrooms, we have our students do posters, and we do this with both asthma and we do it as a part of the radon section as well. And the idea behind this is to work as an individual or work in a pair, outline and articulate key pieces of information related to that topic. And again, it allows for demonstration of knowledge through words and through pictures. And so it's a way to help youth who like to be more creative and are more visual be able to do the same thing as in terms of articulating knowledge as someone who's better at writing an essay or filling out a test. But it allows us to see student growth and mastery of the subject matter. Also with the radon posters, you can use those posters to be submitted for the radon poster contest as well. And that's something that students may be interested in doing as part of their work.
Each unit or each module also includes a KWL activity. Many of you may have actually done these in elementary school. These are pretty common, but at the beginning of the module, students are given this blank KWL chart. K stands for know, W is want to know, and L is what you've learned. So before we teach any of the concepts in the module, students are given an opportunity to write down everything that they think they already know about that unit. So for asthma, students, especially students who already have asthma or maybe have siblings with asthma, their no column is pretty filled out, but it really is just an opportunity for students to think through everything they've already learned about this topic, everything they already know, and it helps give them ownership and help them be a little bit more interested in the modules, because they can say, oh, I know this, or I want to know this. And then as we move through the modules, students are given opportunities at the end of lessons to fill in bullet points for the learned column. So they're always constantly adding different topics that they learned that day or in that module to their big KWL chart. One of the activities that we have is healthy home scenarios. So we have several slides with different scenarios that show one of the healthy home hazards. As an example, one of the scenarios says, this is Janiqua's dog, Brutus. He loves to lay on the couch with Janiqua, but his fur makes her sneeze. Sometimes it even gets hard for her to breathe. Brutus's fur is considered a blank for Janiqua. So students would say that it's a trigger, and that's related to asthma or allergies. Once students complete the scenarios as a whole class, they then have the opportunity to create their own scenarios. So students will, they're given a worksheet and they have 5 different blanks where they can create their own scenario. They try to get another student to guess which hazard is being shown or which Healthy Homes principle is missing. And then other students are able to guess on those worksheets.
One of the other things that we have as a part of our modules are various rubrics, and we've created these to help teachers assess student performance, and also so that students have a guide when they start to think about how they're going to do their projects or how they're going to do their papers or their color books or their storybooks. I'm sorry. It lets them monitor and plan and assess kind of their own work based on the rubric, so they know what they're being graded on. Now, teachers can use these rubrics as they are. They can make up their own, or they can add to these rubrics. It really depends on whatever they desire to do, but we thought it would be easier to have a rubric already associated with the particular project so that it makes it simpler for students and teachers alike. So we've kind of told you what was in the curriculum, and we've gone through almost a year of piloting this curriculum. And so we thought we'd share just real briefly what we've discovered has happened in terms of student growth. And what this chart represents are the average scores of students before and their pretest, as well before the lesson plan was implemented, and the average scores afterwards. So what we discovered was that students really have gained a lot of knowledge. They might have known most about asthma to begin with. I think there was 61% were pretty knowledgeable. The average score was 61%. In terms of asthma, but even then the knowledge growth or the change in the average percent was quite a bit, went up to 89% was the average score. Radon, it was interesting, they knew the least about radon. The average score at the beginning was about 38%, and their growth on average was 98%. So that really indicates that was a topic that they learned about. Again, these are just average scores, and we could dive deeper into specifically what students didn't know or did know, but it was kind of interesting. The largest growth that we saw on scores for Healthy Homes was a 44% increase. For asthma was 60, for radon was 80, for water quality individually was 90, and for lead was 80. So there were some students that really went from knowing very little to knowing quite a bit, which was kind of exciting to see.
Sarah, let me ask. Sarah,
Yes.
let me ask you a real quick question that just came in. At some point, and this is sort of also between you and me and the rest of the group here, there is a plan to publish those results at some point, either in a paper or when you finalize it, because there's a lot of requests from the questions box about people wanting to know, especially the people involved with youth, about the actual results of that. So the answer, I think, is eventually we will publish. Go ahead.
Yes. We will. That will be published in the future, and we're diving a little bit deeper into that. And so I'm glad y'all are interested in it, because that's good to know. Beyond the numbers, we talked about science and being able to apply the principles of science to everyday life, and so finding things that are relevant and meaningful. And we found that students are beginning to take some agency over these topics and some ownership of actions. And so in the assessment, we asked them, I read some of those open-ended questions, and we've learned why this topic makes a difference in their everyday lives, really. One of the students said, "Thank you for showing me about asthma, because my brother has asthma, and now I know I can help him." There was a student that, even though these students don't drive, because again, they're middle school students and probably aren't that interested in cars and starting them up and getting them ready to go to school, but there was one that said that they heat their car up in the garage without the garage door open. Now they know they can't do that because of carbon monoxide. So that makes a difference. There's a student that was surprised that their home was built in 1972, which means they might have lead issues. So there are a lot of things that students are learning that are relevant to their lives. I like some of these beyond the number ones, where students, again, they have a voice and they can talk about actions they can take. So one said their mom didn't know that mold could be green, which is funny, or green or red. That's right, green or red. And so they've learned that some things are mold that may not have thought were. And also the idea that they understand the use of using a fan in the bathroom, and not allowing people to smoke inside, and to remove stuffed animals and things. The one that I really love, though, is the child that I want to bring home to my own house, because as a result of all of this, they're going to help around the house more, and they're going to do things like clean dishes, vacuum, dust, wipe, and sweep. So that's the child that I would like to bring on home.
So educators are observed periodically by administration. All educators are. And I was observed when I was piloting this curriculum by my principal. And this is one of the comments that he left me with. He said, "I appreciate the preparation and monitoring it takes to launch this type of instruction and to see it to the end. This is a great example of instruction that engages the kids in meaningful work that has a global context and allows them to be creative, collaborative, and challenges them to think and communicate." So this was really exciting because that's exactly how we designed the curriculum. We wanted it to be meaningful. We wanted them to collaborate with other students. We wanted them to really think about how this could be applied to their lives. And so sometimes when you try to get teachers to buy in to new curriculum, it can be a little bit difficult. But if you share this with them and you share with them that this really is all set up for them, they don't have to do much work, and it's something that administrators would really like to see, you might be able to get a little bit more buy-in.
So next steps in the curriculum, I mentioned that we were going to do a carbon monoxide and a home safety one. We also hope to translate the first module of the Introduction to Healthy Homes Principles into Spanish. So that's kind of our next steps. But let me tell you where you can find this curriculum if anybody is interested in it. We have it on a content management system called Moodle, and the URL is down there at the bottom. So if you log on and you self-enroll in this, you can access all of the materials that we talked about today. So all 5 modules are there for you to be able to use. So hopefully you'll find that useful. And then we can also keep track of you, because once you self-enroll, we'll know who you are, and that's helpful to us, so we know who we reached. We also have a suggestion box in the Moodle. So if there's something that you would like to see or have a comment about, something that worked well or didn't work so well, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on particular topics.
So we're looking forward to your comments about how you might be able to see this work in your community. But one of the things that we noticed in the communities that by we I mean Katie, because Sarah and I were in the office more, but what we are thinking about then is how to be sensitive to the diversity of dwellings that our students currently reside in. So we understand that the housing situation for each student might be different. In fact, we could have homeless students. So we the curriculum really tries to be sensitive to that by using generic terms, and also leaving out any value judgments on living situations. So we'll try to just help students understand that home is where they are, and they can draw from past home experiences. They can also, again, think about middle school, they can draw from home experiences, but also think to their future homes and what they want to see in a home. So it kind of gives them an opportunity to sort of think through in a way that's non-judgmental. And so for this curriculum, we definitely suggest defining home as a place where students rest their head at night, or where they arrive from when coming to and from school.
And then if you go through the assessment assignment, and you shouldn't make a child feel like they must use their home, particularly if they don't have a home, or if they're living in transitional housing or hotel or whatever it may be. So give them options in terms of what to assess. They could assess a relative's home, or a former home, a friend's home, or even the school environment, because we don't want a child to feel left out or in any way because of whatever their living situation might be. In addition to that, one of the things that may happen is some students may come in and say, oh, we have an issue related to lead. My parents want to know more. You might get a note from a teacher that says we want to know more. And so on the Moodle, we have included some resources that educators can share with adults. We have the short consumer action guide from Everyone Deserves a Safe and Healthy Home. We have the more extensive stakeholder guide that has more information about the various home hazards. And then we also have a resource that's additional resources that includes links to other organizations or other agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency and HUD and various places where adults can find more information on particular topics to help them address whatever issues they may have related to their homes.
Another thing that we are planning on adding to each of the lessons, or that we're in the process of adding, is connecting each of the modules and each of the lesson plans to one of the next generation science standards. So very similar to Common Core, how math and reading curriculum has been switched over to Common Core standards. The new national science standards are going to be the next generation science standards. So many states are in the process of adopting these in the future. So that's something that we will be adding. Some suggestions for implementation for this curriculum: you can connect with local educators through their district or county. Many districts and counties have science curriculum specialists, so you can get in contact with them and share the resources with them, and then they can then share those resources in the curriculum with their teachers. You could also consider offering professional development continuing education units for educators for learning about this curriculum. CEUs are something all educators have to have in order to renew their license, their teaching license. You can also consider using this curriculum in elective classes or club settings. One of the things that we really tried to do, especially considering all the different types of assessments we incorporated into our curriculum, with a club, you may not want to use the assessments like the multiple choice tests, but there are still many other projects that you can use that have already been created in a club setting. You can also use all of the modules together as one big Healthy Homes curriculum, or you could use pieces of each one or just one or two units that fit best into the already established science curriculum. So after going through those, do you all have any other suggestions for implementation that come to mind about how you might share this resource with other educators in your area?
I'll see what comes in the questions window.
And while you're thinking about suggestions for implementation, if you have other questions, we are kind of concluding the presentation component, but would love to have an opportunity to have a discussion about your thoughts or questions or ideas.
So I'm going to start reading you some of the questions, and some of them came in a little bit earlier, and I want to answer some kind of Healthy Homes Partnership questions that came in. So first of all, there's a couple of questions that came in a little bit ago about, can this curriculum be modified to younger youth, and then can it be implemented for adults? So here's the answer to those two questions, because they're almost the same answer. So I am the director of what's called the National Healthy Homes Partnership. So like Sarah, I am a university extension outreach housing specialist. We write a lot of curriculum. We were tasked with HUD and USDA to actually create a curriculum that was pretty extensive across all clients and families and communities. And that project's been going on for more than a decade. And many of you might be familiar with a guide called Help Yourself to Healthy Home. That was actually written by us. In fact, I think Sarah and I were both involved in the early copy of it. And it's been used extensively. Thousands and thousands of copies have gone out in print. So we updated that curriculum a couple years ago. It's now called Everyone Deserves a Safe and Healthy Home, and Sarah referred to it in one of her slides. There is a consumer guide. It's about 12 pages, a stakeholder guide for the people who are on this webinar would be interested in the stakeholder version. And we were tasked with the federal agencies to sort of look at making these guides usable, so that instead of going to a North Carolina resource or a state of Missouri resource and getting conflicting informations. We wanted to consolidate it into a entire curriculum. So having said that, then we were tasked to, let's take the everyone deserves a safe and healthy home, and let's reach out to communities and to age groups and to family types. The homeless question thing that came up was really important, that have not traditionally been addressed by Healthy Homes. So we do have a state right now that is working on a youth app that's taking the exact same curriculum that Sarah's talking about and making it app friendly for youths that are younger than middle school, about 4-H level. And then for the adults, for those of you who are asking, is this available in adult curriculum? We actually have that adult curriculum on our healthyhomespartnership.net website. And a lot of that is, if you look at the actual technical information that Sarah's talking about, it's included in those curriculum guides that all of you will have access to. So, and again, we have one coming out really soon on American Indian tribal communities, Alaska Native. We have a couple of other projects coming out, but in general, we're trying to expand. And so Sarah's is really the first big project to come out of that expansion of, can we reach more audiences with this same curriculum? So those are all really good comments. So let me start reading you some of the other questions that we have had. So one person said, I'm totally blown away. This is the most innovative, creative, complete teaching resource and curriculum, and I can't wait to implement it on our state. So flexible and appropriate for many groups and 4-H programs. I completely agree. We've been really proud of Sarah and her group. I'd give her a round of applause if everybody could actually have their mic on, which we don't. But anyway, it is a really fantastic curriculum, and I do highly encourage people not only to look at it, but to recommend it to your middle school teachers that you have access to as part of your programming. We do know that everybody's really excited about it. Again, it's been piloted. We're starting to see some results. And to me, one of the key issues is, and again, as a school teacher, if you work with school teachers, they'll tell you that if it meets the Common Core standards or if it meets all these other statewide standards, it's almost guaranteed to be used. So that point that they spent some time to make sure it met those competency standards, I think is really important to the school teachers. And a couple of the questions that came up, have you worked with the National PTA? Sarah, do you want to answer that? I don't believe we have, but unless you are aware of any communication you've had with them.
No, have not yet. No, but that's a great idea. There are a lot of groups that I think we want to take this to. We were just trying to make sure that we had it piloted with the kinks worked out before we sort of throw it out there for everybody else to see. So, and if you have suggestions for who we should contact, we're happy to do that.
A couple other people who have made those recommendations. Someone said summer camps for youth. That's a good suggestion. Family workshops sponsored by city or neighborhood organizations. That's a good. Other parent-teacher groups. I think all three of those are great. So there also is a request, so we probably need to answer this one too. There's a request by somebody to know if it will be available completely in the fall for them to use as part of their HUD grant that they have in the fall. And I believe, Sarah, that HUD will have its final review. I mean, they have done a preliminary review. They like it, but I think there's a couple other people and agencies that are still in the process of reviewing it. So I believe in the fall it will be done.
Okay, whatever they need to do, we've got it at a point where we're ready for it to roll, and
right.
And as you can see, you can access it. So if there are any changes that'll be made, we can do those in real time and upload them. So that's what makes the site so, I think, useful, is that all the information is there all the time. So as we add new things, whenever you go to the site, you can find it.
One of the other questions, could you include effects of mold, dust, and dander on asthma? Is that included in the asthma module?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Someone asked, do they have to make an account in North Carolina State to log into that system?
Well, no. You just enter your own email and your own contact information. It's not an account per se.
Another question, actually, this is a suggestion. This is an excellent suggestion to use this curriculum with Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Oh yeah, that would be great. That would be wonderful. Great
Um,
idea.
Someone's asking, are there educational videos for kids related to this curriculum?
We have not created any. We get a very small budget to create this. So video hasn't been a part of that. We do try to access videos that from outside resources, and so we have incorporated those, but we have not created any specific to this curriculum. Maybe we will in the future.
That's a good question, because the next round of Healthy Homes funding going to like Sarah and the other states, that's a good suggestion to think about in the future. We can definitely think about that. So, okay, let's see. I believe that is, I don't see any, let's see. Let me try to see if there's any more questions. I don't think I see any more. I'll give people maybe 30 seconds. You do have the slide up with the contact information. We do encourage people to follow up if you have additional questions and you want access to this curriculum. I also want to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let me sort of tell you, and you probably saw it at the beginning of the slide, but just so I am a housing specialist, and I have the sort of the content expertise as it relates to housing. Kim has the expertise as it relates to sort of working with this population and the kinds of things that youth do, and you know, she has a adolescence expertise. And can talk about the developmental processes. And then Katie is actually a middle school science and math teacher. And so she has the expertise for how this works in a classroom, and tips and techniques for what helps students in terms of not only learning the content, but what also helps teachers in incorporating the content into the science curriculum that they have to meet. In order to meet those assessments.
Okay, so a couple other questions that have come in. One of the questions was, this is a person from Arizona who wrote a real estate approved course for 3 continuing education hours, and it was a very good success. And he was asked to teach a shorter version. Would he recommend teaching resources? And if it's okay with you, Sarah, I will answer that question. So if for those of you that are saying, what about this adult curriculum? We've actually had that out for a while. Sarah, I know, wrote one of the modules. I wrote one of the modules on carbon monoxide. If you go to the website, healthyhomespartnership.net, and you click on the educator button, you will see that there's actually curriculum guides, and each of those are very, very similar to the curriculum that Sarah is showing, where it's a couple of pages of, you know, if you're an educator, here's how to set it up, here's the order you should do, here's how the supplies you should have, here's the activities. And we actually have that one for adults. And in the adult curriculum, it has levels of how long you're gonna teach that subject. So for instance, on carbon monoxide, it will be, if you're going to do a 30-minute Rotary talk, here's what you do. If you're going to do an hour-and-a-half work, so we have that curriculum already available. It's at healthyhomespartnership.net. And there's a related question to that, which is some of those curricular guides occasionally will reference help yourself to healthy homes. And as we mentioned, it's now everyone deserves safe and healthy homes. We're actually updating that curriculum to make sure that you go to the updated guide. It just takes a little bit of time with all these other projects we're doing and reviewing. But before the conference in Anaheim in a couple of weeks, we will have all those curriculums updated with the correct adult guide. A couple more things. There's a question, this is a very long one. So, there's a couple suggestions also about, you know, a good suggestion would be to think about this in science and children's museums, you know, as activities. That's an excellent suggestion. It says, is there any follow-up to this curriculum? Maybe I missed it in the presentation, but what if something is found that's dangerous in the home? Is that something that is covered? Again, I know you're doing a brief overview, but I believe the curriculum has remedial steps or has links to, if you do find it, here's where you would go, with an adult to find out how to fix this. Because we won't,
Right.
obviously, we don't want middle school kids scraping lead paint off of buildings on their own. They shouldn't do it anyway. So I do believe we do have references that go to that information about what to do after something is found in the home.
Right. And the other thing, Michael, that could be done that we did not do, we did not go through state by state and identify particular agencies that might deal with lead paint or that might deal with, asbestos or whatever it might be. So if you're a teacher or you're working with a teacher and you know of specific resources available in your community or available in your state that relate to some of these topics, then that may be something that you'd want to add on as a part of offering this curriculum, so that they would know that I don't have to go to necessarily to the EPA site. I can
Right.
go to my local environmental health folks, and they can help me with these issues.
We'll take one last question. Someone's asking, would you show the slide with the website again, please? I believe that
There it is.
Perfect. And if you will give me a second here, I will pull up the Healthy Homes Partnership website, again, healthyhomespartnership.net, and I'm going to change let me change this to presenter to me. Let's see if that will work. Not sure that did, so hold on a second.
We're looking at your screen.
And you're seeing the list of webinars, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let me really quickly. Oh, I see. Hold on. Oh, I see what okay, hold on a second. I got it. Okay, so if you go to healthyhomespartnership.net, which also we have actually two web domains, extension healthyhomes.org, healthyhomespartnership.net. This is where you're going to see, which is where you're going to see when you first come in. And I'm going to go here and say I'm an educator. And right here, if you see it says Healthy Homes Educators, there are the adult versions of the curriculum that Sarah based the middle school curriculum on. And again, there's a PowerPoint presentation and a lesson plan that goes with that. I also want to point out to everybody, because this is a very convenient time to do this, that when you're on this same page, they're not uploaded for this year yet, but you notice that right here where my mouse is waving is a link called webinars. If you click down on that where it says Healthy Homes Webinars, this webinar and all of the ones from this year are going to be uploaded to this location. HUD will also have a copy on their website, and we'll also link it to go to webinar. But for those of you wondering, can we get copies of this presentation and the PowerPoint presentation, those will be uploaded. It usually takes about a week to get it finalized in the recording and get all the attachments to it and everything, but we will do that. Let's see, one of the final questions we're getting is, can we use some of the graphics in your slides? And I can't answer that because I don't know where you got them, but I believe if they're public domain, you can, but you might have some specific ones that your graphics people did.
Yeah, well, so none of them are public domain. The graphics, most of the graphics that we have are actual work that the students did. So they are not, they're not, I mean, they're ours, they're mine, and our team's. The other ones that come from the scenarios are actually graphics that we purchased through Big Stock Photo. So I guess if you're going to use them outside of the curriculum, you'll have to buy your own. But if you use the curriculum as it's packaged without selling it, then you can use it.
Sarah, I have one last request, and this will be the last one we take. Could you go ahead? I've switched it back to you. Could you go ahead and one more time accept the presentation and get that slide that goes to the curriculum again?
We can add our URL to it. There you go.
There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so I thank everybody for attending this really fantastic webinar. This is a project we're exceptionally excited about. We are going to be talking a little bit about this at the National Healthy Homes Conference in Anaheim in a couple of weeks, along with some of our other programs, including for youth. Sarah and Kathleen, and the third person is
Kim.
Kim. Thank you so much for a fantastic presentation, and we will be following up with you with the feedback we got from this, and we hope everybody has a good rest of the day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,